Hola clase, hoy vamos a aprender el tiempo condicional. Es un tiempo muy divertido y creo que les va a gustar. Feel free to pause this lecture at any time in order to catch up with your notes. I am going to require that you take notes just as if I were in class with you today. It'll probably be easiest to take them on a piece of paper, and then afterwards maybe just take a picture of it and add it into your Notability file. Also, I want to remind you that because you're watching this through the Edpuzzle platform, I can see if you skip ahead and don't watch the entire video. So don't do it. Watch the whole video, take notes, pause when you need to. Feel free to rewatch anything you need. So primero vamos a decidir cuándo usamos el condicional. So first use of this tense is a verb that has conditions attached to it. For example, yo iría a Portugal, and the condition attached to that is if I had money. Yo iría a Portugal. We do this in English also, and we would only say would something when there are conditions attached to it. So you'd use it naturally just as you would use it in English. The direct translation is would and then the verb. Would swim, would run, would purchase, etc. The second use is also a way we use this tense in English, and that's to soften a request, so to make something a little bit politer. Por ejemplo, me dirías la hora, would you tell me the time, instead of you tell me the time, right? So instead of, it's a great way to avoid our command tense, which we don't really like that much anyway. So it's a nice, easy tense to use. You sound politer. It's a win-win situation. Para formar el condicional. Para formarlo es súper fácil. Just like our futuro, the raíz is actually the infinitivo. So the raíz for the verb correr would be correr. The raíz for the verb hablar would be hablar. So the entire infinitive is what we use. And then the endings that we add to it are ia, ias, ia, íamos, and ian. Fíjense en que hay un acento en todas las i's, right? También, you probably remember that these were our same endings that we added for the imperfect tense. Remember the ias and the abas? These are the ending on the ias, but instead of getting attached to the infinitive, the conditional, por ejemplo, comería, that's the conditional, and the imperfect looked like this, comía. So the imperfect was attached to the root here, com, and the conditional, the same ia, is attached to the entire verb. So it's pretty obvious which one it is. I'd like you to pause here and conjugate both of these verbs, platicar, which means to chat, and vender, to sell, for all 6 of your forms. So make your whole chart. The person talking, the person you're talking to, the person you're talking about, the singular and the plural column. Go ahead and check your answers here. Make sure you got the entire root in there. So platicaria, platicarías, platicaría, platicaríamos, platicarían. Vender, same thing. Make sure you do not have vendía. That's incorrect. Vendería, venderías, vendería, venderíamos, and venderían. Oh, the irregulars. You knew they were here. They're pretty much, they are exactly the same irregulars as the future tense. So I'd like you to write them all out again because it's good for your brain to make connections with writing. So here's the root, and we just add our ia, ias, ia, iamos, and ian. So here you can say, as in the examples, all we did was add the ia, ias, ia, íamos, and the ian to the roots over on the left. Some that I want to point out, caber means to fit into. Cabría, I would fit into the jeans if I didn't eat so much. Be careful with poner and poder. Pondría and podría, these two look a lot alike. The double R in querría, and then valer is valdría. It means to be worth. So you might say, my house would be worth more valdría más. So we started off by saying that we use this tense when there are conditions attached to an action, a verb. So sometimes you'll want to express that condition. If it's in the same sentence as the conditional verb, things get a little complicated. So the easiest way to do it is actually to avoid the verb altogether. So try not to say the condition with a verb. Try to say it without a verb. So for example, instead of if I had $1 million, I would do something, you can say with $1 million, I would do something, and just avoid the verb to have. If you would like to use the verb, great. It just gets a little complicated. So we call this an if clause. If I were to have $1 million, I would buy you a house. So an if in Spanish is sí without an accent. That's why I always get so upset and make you put the accent on it. Sí with an accent means yes, and sí without an accent means if. So in order to state the condition, you need to use the word sí, which means if, and then the imperfect subjunctive, holy moly, and then a comma and the conditional tense, or you can flip those around. Start with the conditional, then if, imperfect subjunctive. And notice this way you don't need a comma. So for example, if I were to have money, I would go to Spain. And I would go to Spain if I were to have money. So same thing stated twice. So tricky part is going to obviously be the imperfect subjunctive. So you can see the imperfect subjunctive is going to always show up right after the sí, no matter where the sí is, the if. So here's our imperfect subjunctive here, tuviera and tuviera. So we just spent months battling the present subjunctive. You probably don't want to take that on right now, but I've got a little bit of a shortcut for you that will help. Here are 3 if clauses, all of which use that same imperfect subjunctive that I mentioned earlier. So these are all imperfect subjunctive correctly conjugated. And it's the verb poder, if I were to be able to, si pudiera. The verb tener, if I were to have, si tuviera. And the verb ser, if I were, si fuera. So all of these you should be easy to use. If you really want to get crazy and change the subject, they have all the same endings as everything. So the to form would be si fueras, the ustedes and the ellos form, si tuvieran, the nosotros form, si pudiéramos. And needs an accent there. So have fun with these 3 clauses. So you have if I could, if I had, and if I were. So all of these are going to be followed by the conditional. So the other sentence, the other verb in this sentence would be the conditional tense. So here are my sentences that I added to them. Si pudiéramos ir, sería divertido. Sería is your conditional. Si tuvieran más tiempo, el proyecto saldría mejor. Here's an irregular of the conditional. And si fueras alto, abrirías las ventanas para la maestra. And again, we have our conditional here.